You know, the signs continue to point to that perhaps President Obama is ready to bypass Congress on gun control. The administration has reportedly readied now a proposed expansion of background checks, and a lot of people are saying this is just the tip of the iceberg. I want you to take a look at this chart, though. It seems like President Obama has done a heck of a lot to help selling a whole lot of guns. Also, by the way, this as Connecticut Governor Daniel Malloy has proposed using an executive order. This is just yesterday to ban gun sales to those who are now on the federal no-fly list. Joining me on this, Erikka Knuti, Democratic Strategist, Kirsten Haglund, Miss America 2008, and Fran Townsend, former Homeland Security Advisor. Erikka, I'll start with you. You know, you got Connecticut using the executive order. President Obama saying, despite the fact that he signed that, you know, we know he wants this, probably he'll lay out a series of executive orders. You think it'll work?
I mean, I hope it does. I mean, I think the American people want there to be not necessarily full-on changing the gun laws, but just meeting them where they already are. The majority of Americans support background checks. And most people think that there's universal background checks, but there isn't. 40% of gun sales do not have a background check on them. And so I think it's closing that gap. And Congress isn't doing anything about it. So at some point, doesn't the chief executive have an obligation to make government work for the people? You know, I think so. I mean, yeah, particularly with the Connecticut law. I mean, if we're saying that you're too dangerous to go on an airplane, should we really say that you should be able to buy a gun?
Well, I think what a lot of people are worried about, though, is that there's just a certain amount of disdain for guns, period, just like fossil fuels. And these steps, even if they're argued as being smart or common sense, which is a term they like to use, are just the beginning of many that ultimately would try to erase the Second Amendment. Fran?
You know, here's the problem. You know, it does seem like it's common sense to use this terrorist watch list, but what most people don't understand, including the administration, is that the watch list has not been managed very effectively, right? And so you had people like former, now deceased Senator Ted Kennedy on that list, and lots of innocent Americans are on that list. So if you want to use that as a screening method to prevent people from getting guns, then you have to devote the resources to really manage that list.
You know, also, guys, Northeastern University is following in the footsteps of other Boston area schools. They have a new decision now to actually arm its police force with semi-automatic rifles. University officials say it's better to be safe than sorry. Kirsten, you know, these schools have been sitting ducks. They've been easy targets, and I think a lot of people are coming to the conclusion maybe they shouldn't be.
They are those soft targets that a lot of terrorists and other people that just want to go do violence, they do look to those places. And so I think this is great. And I know a lot of college students across the country, especially those in those gun-free zones, feel like this is a good thing. A lot of people that they talk to in that particular school situation, they said they feel safer. Right. They feel safer going to class, and school should be a place to learn. They should not be a place where kids have to fear for their lives. So I think this is great. They're highly trained individuals, and I think that they're going to make our college
Erikka, let's use that term again, common sense. To you, does this make sense?
It doesn't. These aren't police officers. These are university officers, which are not the same thing. They do not receive the same type of training. They are not trained to deal with an active shooter situation the same way. So if a lone wolf gunman kicks down the door with a rifle in his hand, you mean to tell me that you don't want anyone there to protect the students? Well, this is what I will say is that Columbine, there was an armed police officer, and at the Oregon shooting, there was a combat veteran who had a concealed and carried permit and a weapon on him, and he chose not to engage because sometimes when there's firefight going on, adding more guns to the mix is more dangerous. If the Boston police commissioner, which he came out and said that he does not think that the university should be introducing more guns onto that campus, he thinks that their police services can handle it. I kind of trust him.
But he said that it would be 5 to 6 minutes that they could respond to a case on that college campus. In 5 to 6 minutes, think of how many students could be killed. And those police officers on campus do go through a rigorous training. So I don't think there's anyone here saying that they're not necessarily trained, that they're just random people. And one person with a gun, their team that can get there immediately, not 5 to 6 minutes.
And Fran, here's the thing, you know, it's sort of disingenuous to say at this particular, you know, situation, there was one person with a gun in their sock, and there was one person there. If a lot of people who were trained with these weapons were there, there's no doubt that the damage would be mitigated, that we would save people's lives.
Absolutely.
I think there's actually a little bit of doubt. I mean, there was a guy who put a USA Today column today who is a trained Special Forces officer who said the amount of training that he has had to deal with an active shooter is just nowhere near in comparison to what particularly a university officer would have or the average police officer. It's just not the same level of training.
I tell you what, though, I would feel so much better if my kid went to a school where they had a lot of weapons